to control the physical plane activities through the medium of the brain. In these three, soul, mind and brain, we have the analogy and the clue to the understanding of spirit, soul and body, and their mutual functions. This was the subject matter of the book, The Light of the Suwon. Upon the perfecting of the conditions dealt with in that book, there follows still another expansion when the spirit aspect, man's emanating source of energy, begins to use the soul, via the intuition, and to impress upon the soul consciousness those laws, knowledges, forces and inspirations which will make the soul the instrument of the spirit, or monad, just as the personal man became, at an earlier stage, via the mind, the instrument of the soul. In that earlier stage the development was twofold. As the soul assumed control, via the mind, so the brain became responsive to the soul. Man was awakened to a knowledge of himself as he really was, and to the three worlds of his normal evolution. Later he became group conscious and was no longer a separated individual. As the soul is brought under the dominance of the spirit, an analogous two stages are likewise seen. First, the disciple becomes aware not only of his group and allied groups, but his consciousness is expanded until it might be called planetary consciousness. Secondly, he begins to merge that planetary awareness into something more synthetic still, and gradually develops the consciousness of the greater life, which includes the planetary life, as man includes in his physical expression such living organisms as his heart or brain. When this takes place, he begins to comprehend the significance of spirit, the one life back of all forms, the central energy which is the cause of all manifestation. The first reaction of the average student on reading the above is to think immediately of the body nature, as it expresses some type or other of energy. Thus the duality is the thing noted, and that which employs the thing is present in his mind. Yet one of the main necessities before occult aspirants at this time, is to endeavor to think in terms of the one reality which is energy itself, and nothing else. Therefore, it is of value to emphasize in our discussion of this abstruse subject, the fact that spirit and energy are synonymous terms, and are interchangeable. Only in the realization of this can we arrive at the reconciliation of science and religion and at a true understanding of the world of active phenomena by which we are surrounded, and in which we move. The terms, organic and inorganic, are largely responsible for much of the confusion, and the sharp differentiation existing in the minds of many people between body and spirit, between life and form, and have led to a refusal to admit the essential identity in nature of these two. The world in which we live is regarded by the majority as really solid and tangible, yet possessing some mysterious power, lying concealed within it, which produces movement, activity and change. This is of course putting it crudely, but it suffices to sum up the unintelligent attitude. The orthodox scientist is largely occupied with structures and relationships, with the composition of forms and with the activity produced by the component form parts and their interrelations and 16 dependencies. The chemicals and elements, and the functions and parts they play, and their mutual interactions as them compose all forms in all the kingdoms of nature, are the subject of their investigation. The nature of the atom, of the molecule, and the cell, their functions, the qualities of their force manifestations, and the varying types of activity, the solving of the problem as to the character and nature of the energies focalized or localized in the differing forms of the natural or material world demand the consideration of the ablest minds in the world of thought. Yet, the questions, what is life? Or what is energy? Or what is the process of becoming and the nature of being? Remain unanswered. The problem as to the why, and the wherefore is regarded as fruitless, and speculative and almost insoluble. Nevertheless, through pure reason, and through the correct functioning of the intuition these problems can be solved and these questions answered. Their solution, is one of the ordinary revelations and attainments of initiation. The only true biologists are initiates of the mysteries, for they have an understanding of life and its purpose and are so identified with the life principle that they think and speak in terms of energy and its effects, and all their activities in connection with the work of the planetary hierarchy are based on a few fundamental formulas which concern life as it makes itself felt through its three differentiations, or aspects: energy, force, matter. It should be noted here that only as a man understands himself can he arrive at an understanding of that which is the sum total that we call God. This is a truism, and an occult platitude, but when acted upon leads to a revelation, which makes the present unknown God a recognized reality. Let me illustrate. Man knows himself to be a living being and calls death that mysterious process wherein something which he commonly designates as the breath of life is withdrawn. On its withdrawal, the form disintegrates. The cohesive, vitalizing force is gone, and this produces a falling apart into its essential elements of that which has hitherto been regarded as the body. This life principle, this basic essential of being, and this mysterious elusive factor is the correspondence in man of that which we call spirit or life in the macrocosm. Just as the life in man holds together, animates, vitalizes and drives into activity the form, and so makes of him a living being, so the life of God, as the Christian calls it, performs the same purpose in the universe and produces that coherent, living, vital ensemble which we call a solar system. This life principle in man manifests in a triple manner. 1. As the directional will, purpose, basic incentive. This is the dynamic energy which sets his being functioning, brings him into existence, fixes the term of his life, carries him through the years, long or short, and abstracts itself at the close of his life cycle. This is the spirit in man, manifesting as the will to live, to be, to act, to pursue, to evolve. In its lowest aspect this works through the mental body or nature, and in connection with the dense physical makes itself felt through the brain. 2. As the coherent force. It is that significant essential quality which makes each man different, which produces that complex manifestation of moods, desires, qualities, complexes, inhibitions, feelings, and characteristics which produce a man's peculiar psychology. This is the result of the interplay between the spirit, or energy aspect, and the matter or body nature. This is the distinctive subjective man, his coloring, or individual note. This it is which sets the rate of vibratory activity of his body, produces his particular type of form, is responsible for the condition and nature of his organs, his glands, and his outer aspects. This is the soul, and in its lowest aspect is to be seen working through the emotional 17 or astral nature, and, in connection with the dense physical body, through the heart. 3. As the activity of the atoms, and cells of which the physical body is composed. It is the sum total of those little lives of which the human organs, comprising the entire man, are composed. These have a life of their own and a consciousness, which is strictly individual and identified. This aspect of the life principle works through the etheric or vital body and, in connection with the solid mechanism of the tangible form, through the spleen. Therefore let us remember, that the definition of spirit is not possible of accomplishment, nor is the definition of God. When one says that spirit is the inexpressible, undefinable cause, the emanating energy, the one life and source, of being, the totality of all forces, of all states of consciousness, and of all forms, the aggregate of life, and that which is actively manifested of that life, the self and the not-self, force, and all that force motivates, one is in reality evading the issue, attempting the impossible, and hiding truth behind a form of words. This cannot, however, be avoided, until such time as the soul consciousness is touched and known, and the formless one can be perceived through the clear light of the intuition. One of the first lessons we need to learn is that our minds, being as yet unresponsive to the hidden intuitions, make it impossible for us to say with assurance that such a condition is this, that or the other. That, until we can function in our soul consciousness, it is not for us to say what is or what is not. That until we have submitted ourselves to the needed training we are in no position to deny or affirm anything. Our attitude should be that of reasonable inquiry, and our interest that of the investigating philosopher, willing to accept an hypothesis on the basis of its possibility, but being unwilling to acknowledge as proven truth anything until we know it for and in ourselves. I, an aspirant to the higher mysteries, and one who has searched into them for a longer period than has been possible as yet to many, may write of things as yet impossible of demonstration to you or to the public who may read these instructions. To me they may be and are truth and proven fact, and for me that may suffice. For you they should be regarded as significant possibilities, and hints as to the direction in which truth may be sought, but beyond that you should not permit yourself to go. The value of these instructions lies in their sum total and is to be found in the underlying structure, or skeleton of coordinated and correlated statements which must be considered as a whole and not in detail, and this for two reasons. 1. Language, as earlier said, hides truth and does not reveal it. If truth is recognized, it is because the investigating student has found a point of truth in himself which serves to illumine his steps as he slowly and gradually presses forward. 2. There are many types of minds, and it is not to be expected that the information given, for instance, in this treatise will appeal to all. It should be remembered that all people are units of consciousness breathed forth on one of the seven emanations from God. Therefore, even their monads or spiritual aspects are inherently different, just as in the prism, which is one, there are the seven differentiated colors. Even this is so only because of the nature, and point of view, and the perceiving apparatus, of the man whose eye registers and differentiates the varying rates of vibratory light. These seven subsidiary groups again produce a varying outlook, mentality, and approach, all equally right, but all presenting a slightly different angle of vision. When the above realization is coupled to such factors as the different points in evolution, varying nationalities and characteristics, the inherent distinctions brought about through the interplay between the physical body involved and the environment, it will be apparent that no approach to such abstruse subjects as the nature of spirit and soul could have a general definition and submit themselves to a universal terminology. 18b. The soul, the mediator or middle principle. There are two angles or points of view from which the nature of the soul must be grasped. One is the aspect of the soul in relation to the fourth kingdom in nature, i.e. the human, and the other that of the subhuman kingdoms in nature, which, it must be remembered, are reflections of the three higher. It should be borne in mind that the soul of matter, the anima mundi, is the sentient factor in substance itself. It is the responsiveness of matter throughout the universe, and that innate faculty in all forms, from the atom of the physicist, to the solar system of the astronomer,